Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Burning Hints Fantasy Football. We're in the recap of our great season. We had a winner from Nick Paleo, cream of the crop, 2 years straight, in a huge win. Um, we went. I'm pulling it up right here, and we had some advice for him. I don't think he really could have lost it, depending on who he started. Just looking at his bench, I remember we were talking about Scott and Stevenson, and they both put up big numbers. But I mean, he picked
Yep.
a lot of great players and came out with domination. Not that Lestrange had a bad performance, but anything you want to touch on with that?
No, I mean it. I just it's kind of he did an amazing job like throughout the year between picking up James Conner and then losing James Conner for like the playoff stretch for the most part, and then finding other guys to basically fill in. And that running back position is so important.
Yeah, I think it just proves just because you draft good or don't draft well at the running back position, there's still some hope. Because I mean, Foreman, Penny, Stevenson, Scott, Connor, all sort of just kept him alive. Once Josh Allen scored two running touchdowns at the beginning of the game, I was like, oh, okay. I think Nick's going to come away with that because they were playing like crap and still putting up points. I was able to squeak out a win against you for the top draft choice, and that was Joe Burrow putting out a
Yeah.
good end of the
And
season.
do you mean Jamar Chase acting as Joe Burrow?
Yeah, pretty much Jamar Chase just carrying Joe Burrow fantasy wise, especially in the first half. And the funniest thing I thought about this was New England's defense was like dominating, and I was like, oh, okay, that's gonna happen. And then the Bears ended up with like an absurd point total. But it was sort of weird, but it's most of the this went sort of the way we thought it was gonna go in terms of like who's putting up points. But
Yeah.
Burrow was just the big difference there. Um, a 1 by 20, and Burrow was a 15 point difference. So
Yeah, and I thought Javante Williams would do more, but I don't know what happened in that game.
last two
Um,
games really.
yeah, last two games, and then Keyshawn Vaughn I think was still like a solid play. It just comes down to injury, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, just like one big play can sort of make or break
Yeah, I mean
your
Vaughn
game.
left the game with a rib injury, so I mean I can't really predict a injury.
Yeah. So that is it for our season. There's a renew button, and I'm gonna press that renew button here. See what happens. Oh, well, we'll do that later because we're gonna change some other players. But we can go. Let's pull up the bracket so we can find out who's going to pick first, second, exactly. So it's going to be me and then you picking our first picks. And it looks like it'll be Kuzi picking next, and then Tony or TBA picking the fourth pick. Um, and then Smart and Matt's with the 5 and 6 picks. And then we're just going reverse here. So Nick P will have the worst pick or his least amount of options. And I think Lestrange lose in the championship last year or 2 years
He might
ago. I want
have.
to say. I know he's done pretty well, pretty much every year. And then we're looking at Snowball and then Greg, and then I guess Herrera and then Stein. Stein sort of just gave up at the end of the year here. He had a good chance this year. It's
Yeah,
disappointing, but hopefully we'll see. Well, we'll be getting into it as we get closer to the normal draft, and then the summer going into like the regular draft, and hopefully we can have something nice.
and I will say before we leave the fantasy leagues aspect for the year, still looking for that last person for a dynasty league if anyone who listens to this is interested or knows
Yes,
someone who wants to put them in.
looking for a 10th guy for a long-term fantasy league, and you get to be a part of a expansion draft, which will be so much fun.
Yeah. With Nick Wilburn, it'll be an expansion draft where the mandatory attendees are myself, Wilburn, and whoever the other person is.
Yeah.
That should be a fun call with Wilburn.
Yes. All right. So what we're gonna do over the next two things we're gonna do is we're gonna go over basically this next NFL week and what we think about what the seeding's gonna be in the playoffs and all that jazz. And then I think next week we'll probably fill out our bracket and we might be able to pull out. We both did a bracket at the very beginning of the year. Maybe we could pull those up before the
Yeah.
playoffs and see how awful we were. Because I'm pretty sure I picked the Browns, so mine didn't work
I think I
out.
had the Browns in the Super Bowl potentially.
Yeah, I think I had Browns beating the Packers or something like that. And then we'll be going into like just doing one daily fantasy lineup just to see what we're kind of thinking and what we see because it's kind of a weird week with boredom from no fantasy and then everyone kind of maybe resting. So do we want to just go?
Let's focus on like the AFC first, and then we'll do the NFC separately, or else it'll just get too chaotic.
Okay. Do you want to go over seeding, or do you want to just go into matchups for the week?
So I'll just kind of go. I'll just kind of run through it, I guess, with seating slash like what the implications of the games.
Sounds good.
Um, first game is basically Tennessee Houston is like that's your number one seed. If Tennessee wins, they lock up the first round bye, which would be huge for them with Derrick Henry. Basically starting practice yesterday and having that first round bye for him would be incredible. Not sure what your thoughts are. I'm going to take the assumption that Tennessee beats Houston. So
I'm going
then
to assume that as well, but part of me, I just don't believe the Titans like at all. You know, they were winning all those games early in the year, and everyone was like, "Are they for real?" I was like, "Yeah, they'll crash back to earth," and they kind of crashed back to earth. But somehow they're going to come up with the one seed, which is just wild because they're a strange team. But I can't
yeah,
imagine. Mike Vrabel deserves some coach of the year discussion because everyone's really talking about other coaches, but come out with the
yeah,
first seed is wild.
he's really pieced that team together and gotten the most out of them.
Yeah, gotten the most out of them is definitely the right way to say it. All right, we can
But
move
yeah,
on.
Tennessee wins that game, they lock up the one seed. If they don't win, then Kansas City can get it. If they win and over Denver, they would get the one seed. Otherwise, they will be the two seed with a win. I think even if they lose, I think they might still be the two seed. No.
I think
No,
if the Bengals win,
if the
Bengals will get the
Bengals
two seed.
win, Bengals would get the two seed. And you also have Buffalo and New England, and one of them they don't play each other. Sorry, Buffalo and New England can both sneak in there and grab. I think the two seed potentially as well.
No, they played. I guess did they play? Hmm.
I
I
don't
thought the
have the
Buffalo played.
tiebreakers up in front of me here.
Yeah, I
Uh,
thought the Buffalo played. Buffalo beat Kansas City, so yeah, they would get the two seed.
okay.
And then I think
But,
New England would as well because they would have a stronger conference record. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, Kansas City had that one year. I'm not sure if they won it that year or what, but basically the Patriots lost to Miami and gave up a first round bye back when it was a two seed first round bye, and
yeah.
Kansas City lucked into a bye, and we'll see if that's luck continues with Texans spoiling the Titans or if it's just
Well,
it is
I'm
what
going
it
to go
is.
under the assumption that Tennessee beats Houston, so they're going to lock up the one seed. I'm going to also assume that Kansas City will take care of Denver,
Same,
because
they
that
just
Denver team is just awful right
falling
now.
apart. Yeah.
So they'll lock up the two seed. That means the Bengals need to win to lock up the three seed, and I'm not sure if they will against Cleveland. I know Baker's out, but I mean Baker's not that great, and I think they'll probably just run Chubb all day.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if they're gonna run Chubb. I know Johnson got most of the carries, or like a lot of the carries last week. No one has any motivation for this game, um,
And
so it's gonna be a
yeah,
game I want to avoid. Uh,
Bengals might be Burrows still potentially might be benched this week, and they've already said that Nixon's out for the week.
I think they
So
said Burrow's definitely out. Now they're like talking about maybe Chase and Higgins will be out. So I think it's going
yeah,
to be
so
a mass benching on both teams because no one has
yeah,
anything to play for really. Tickets are
so
as low as $11.
oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, but so then 4 seed would be Buffalo, and Buffalo is taking on the Jets this week, and I can't imagine Buffalo losing that game at home. Tickets
Yeah.
as low as $8.
Yeah. Especially Buffalo has something to play for. They still haven't locked up the division. If it was like
Yeah,
nothing to play for, maybe the Jets could pull it out. I mean, they played pretty well last week, but generally when bad teams play really well, they drop back down to
yeah.
reality.
New England can win the division if they win and Buffalo somehow loses, but I don't see that happening. I could see Miami beating New England this week, but I don't think it'll have any importance at all.
Yeah, it's
Um, yeah. And then Colts play Jacksonville, and that'll probably be an absolute just steamroll of Jonathan Taylor.
yeah, and Jacksonville just looks so awful. So
But this game is important because if Jacksonville somehow does win, the Colts will be eliminated because either Baltimore or Pittsburgh will get in for the winner of that game, pending the Chargers Raiders don't have a tie.
I believe the Colts can still make it if they lose, Baltimore wins, and Miami wins. That's the only thing, but I wouldn't bet too
Oh
much
yeah,
on Miami winning, even though New England does poorly in Miami. But yeah, I just can't see them losing this game.
yeah. So that base, and then that'll basically that the Colts Jaguars game. If the Colts somehow lose, that would make it relevant for the Pittsburgh Baltimore game. Otherwise, that game's completely irrelevant, and Lamar Jackson is still questionable to play. So I'm not even sure what'll happen there.
Sounds like
Um,
he's not going to play.
the fun game though is that Sunday night game. Chargers Vegas is essentially a Week 18 playoff game
Yeah, look at
because winner
the
gets in.
in Vegas, LA versus Vegas. This is why they moved these two teams to get a big SoCal or whatever rivalry. What do you think
You
about
called
this?
Vegas at the beginning of the year, and that was like before everything happened. I really did not see Vegas being a playoff team. I'm pretty sure whenever we look at our playoff brackets, if it shows records, I had Vegas go like 4-11 or something.
Yeah, a lot of people had them with like 5 or 6 wins, and I was like, this team's like, they're not great, and they'll never be great, but like they're just good enough. Uh, Part of me is just gonna back Las Vegas because that's who I've had, but I can't say I have a lot of confidence. Um,
I'm rooting for the Chargers because I think the Chargers are a much more fun team to watch, and I really don't want to have to watch another Raiders game this year.
yeah, and you'd be looking at probably whoever's gonna win this game is gonna play the Chiefs, and
And the Raiders will get annihilated in that game.
yeah, the Raiders just match up terribly against the Chiefs. They're just like a really crappy version of the Chiefs, and Herbert versus Mahomes would just be a little more interesting. Um, but I would love to see the Raiders back in the playoffs, but I'm not super confident. I'd say like 60% chance the Chargers pull this out, but yeah, it'll be a fun game at least Sunday night in Vegas,
Yeah.
loud stadium, and then Rich Bisaccia trying to I guess keep his job, his interim job. But I don't think that's gonna happen. Well, it'll be interesting
No,
to see what
I
the
think they'll go out
coaches.
and hire someone new.
Yeah,
Um, and then let's hop over to the NFC then. Packers have already clinched the first round bye. So if you are doing daily fantasy, LaFleur said that he's going to play the starters, but I think that he is a liar. and there's no way that they're going to play Aaron Rodgers with like a broken toe. And if they start Devontae Adams, it'll purely be to keep his start streak alive. And then they'll be like, all right, Devontae Adams, you're off onto the bench after the first quarter.
I think they're both going to play like the first quarter and try to get like 2 touchdowns in just to, hold a win. And I think he just wants to get stats for the MVP, to be honest, especially with all the news this week about it. But yeah, I would not touch anyone. Actually, I do have someone on the Packers on my Dana's fantasy team, but it makes a lot of sense.
And then after that, 2 seed is up in the air between the Rams and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers said they're starting everyone, which I think makes complete sense. And I don't see them having a trouble with Carolina. And I'm not sure if the Rams beat San Francisco. San Francisco's had a pretty good. I think they've won like 4 out of the last 5 against the Rams.
It might be 5 straight or something crazy like that.
It might even be 5 straight. I thought it was 4 out of 5, but it might be 5 straight against the Rams, and the Rams need that win for to win the division. So. And if San Francisco doesn't win, I don't see them making the playoffs because the team that the other game is New Orleans at Atlanta. And if the Saints win that game, then they're in. And I don't see Atlanta beating the Saints.
Yeah,
Atlanta. But
I think they could put up a good. How healthy is New Orleans? And then, if we get the Atlanta that we got last week, maybe, but it's hard for me to see New Orleans losing to Atlanta. But I think the Niners are. You go.
I was going to say on Atlanta, I know Kyle Pitts is banged up, and they've been managing snaps on Patterson. And at that point, like, you're just running out of options.
Yeah, it's a 17th game, first ever 17th game, and they're just Atlanta. I'm surprised they've done this well this season. I was expecting a lot worse, to be honest. 7 wins.
I agree.
Is actually like pretty decent. I was like looking at 5 for them, and I think San Fran. I guess it's more the Rams just don't look that great. They're like just getting by. They're just like that classic team that just wins games but doesn't really look good in any of them. They've looked like good 1 week, I want to say, in the past like 5, and that was against the Cardinals. But it'll be an interesting thing. I mean, the NFC West is just a cannibalistic division. San Fran's only won 1 division game, and that was against the Rams. So I'm assuming we're on the same side, thinking that the Niners are going to pull it out.
I actually think the Rams will break that streak and win. I'm rooting for the Niners because I think that they're a better playoff team than the Saints.
Yeah.
They're definitely a lot more fun to watch because they actually have players on their offense. So I think the Rams will win that, and then they'll lock up the 2 seed in the division, which unfortunately will knock the Niners out, and then the Saints will have it.
Yeah, and then the Rams get to play probably the Eagles, so that'll be interesting. Yeah. I'm really pulling for. Actually, no, the Rams would play the Saints probably, and the Eagles would play the Bucks. That's what I'm looking forward to. Eagles Bucks. That seems like a fun game. But
I think that's it for seeding purposes. I guess Dallas is somewhat still relevant because they could get a higher seed, but I don't think either one of those teams starts like a full lineup. I think they play for pride more than they will for actual seeding this week. I don't think there'll be much movement.
Yeah, sounds like Philly is resting their starters, and Dallas probably will as well. And I think wasn't there one more? Cardinals?
Oh yeah, there is the Cardinals, Seattle, which if the Rams lose and the Cardinals win, the Cardinals will win the division. and they'll jump up to like a 4 seed, and the Rams will drop down.
Yeah, but it's an interesting game to see if how like Seattle comes out because it's someone's last game in Seattle, whether that's
Yeah.
Carroll or Wilson. So
Any
not
thoughts
sure
on
if
who
that's.
that'll be?
I think Carroll's gonna get fired. It could be
I
both.
think I think Carroll will stay, and I think Wilson will be out.
It'd be a wild decision there. All right,
All right. Let's
we'll see the seedings next week and make our predictions. Um, and we're gonna go head over to whatchamacallit, daily fantasy. So do we want to go over quarterbacks? Just go position by position here.
yeah, we can go position by position.
And I think we both like the same guy at quarterback. It's just
Yeah.
tough at quarterback with so many potential benchings. Um, and having Taysom Hill playing a competitive game, he's a runner. He might put up a good solid 20 points for a nice price.
Yeah. The other quarterbacks I was looking at whenever I was making my lineup was Trey Lance because he's pretty cheap, but you are playing the Rams and they've played pretty well against quarterbacks. And then I also liked some more expensive guys in Murray and Josh Allen, but they were just too expensive for the other players I wanted.
Yeah, the one other person that I kind of liked, but he's just so inconsistent and I'm not that confident, but I felt like it was a fair pricing was Tannehill versus Houston. That they'll put up points. He could probably get a touchdown or two, get around 20, and 6,000 is not too bad at all. And I was thinking a little bit about Cousins, but I'm not. Something about what's going on in Minnesota scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
Just seems
Another
like,
coach that might be fired here in a week.
yeah, it sounds like both those coaches are going to get fired from that game. And it's going to be, I think Nagy at least has some, I don't know, motivation or energy. Zimmer just seems done. Um, but we can move on over to running back. My top guy, I was trying to get Taylor, but I couldn't fit the money in. But I ended up going with AJ Dillon as like one of my favorite guys, and I picked Najee Harris as well. Just because Najee had such a great game last week, I felt maybe he could move up on that. And then I think Jones will be sitting, and Dillon might get a lot of carries this week.
I thought about Dylan definitely. He was on my list of players I was looking at. I actually ended up putting in Jonathan Taylor because I think he's a smash play against Jacksonville this week. And then I also went with Devin Singletary against the Jets because even though the Tampa Bay running backs failed last week, Devin Singletary's had some pretty solid weeks the past few weeks. And that Jets defense is still the number one defense you want to play a running back against.
Yeah, I like Devin Singletary. Just I think you remember my history of Devin Singletary.
Yeah,
Really
I
being
think
a
you've
big
been burned too
believer.
many times.
I've been burned too many times, but yeah, after last week, I saw his stats last week. I was like, "Holy crap!" Uh, and one other guy that looks good is Montgomery.
I had Montgomery in my lineup a couple different times, but I think I ended up going with Singletary to fit some other guys in there.
Yeah, Singletary makes a lot of sense, and he's just so cheap. But Montgomery's just been so solid. And then one other person that I think is like a solid pick is probably Donta Foreman.
Yeah, I thought about Deontay Foreman as well because just playing that Houston game just gives you a lot of room. I also like Samaje Perine because with Nixon being out, he will get the work and he is cheap.
Yeah. And it's I think like what's probably going to happen this week with like daily fantasy is like people are going to take chances on these backups and someone's going to go off.
Another
It's
good guy is Patterson for Washington going against the Giants. If Gibson is ruled out, I'm not sure if he was ruled out for Week 18 or not. He's a smash play against the Giants, being like a low salary for you to play.
Yeah. Okay, we might be back at running backs a little bit later, but we can head over to receiver. Some people might be going for Cooper Cup because he's trying to break all the records, but he's really setting records, not really breaking them with the new game rule. But right now, I really wanted Debo Samuel, so I really like spearheaded that because I think he's just done really well against the Rams, and they're going to need him. I like Mooney against the Minnesota Vikings. I think Chicago with Fields back is going to try to move the ball. Minnesota's defense is just a mess. And I also picked Cole Beasley against the Jets. He's going to be back from COVID. McKenzie, his backup, did really well the past couple of weeks. And I think it's a good price. I needed someone cheap.
Yeah, I had Mooney in my lineup at one point. I think he's a great play against Minnesota. I ended up going with St. Brown for Detroit. He's been absolutely on fire playing against Green Bay, and if Green Bay pulls their starters, he's going to have another great game. Just his last few games, he's just been absolutely on fire.
Yeah, and they're treating him like Samuel, giving him running carries.
Yeah. And then I also have Cole Beasley for a little bit of budget play. Followed up with another budget play of Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah, I mentioned Laquan earlier, yeah.
Yeah, for like in terms of like I'm building this more for like cash lineup. He's cheap and he can get you essentially like 10 points in a PPR league, which is basically what he's done the past like 5 weeks, I'm pretty sure. Like just looking at his last couple games, 6 for 87, 4 for 54, 6 for 57, 4 for 68, 4 for 62. Just a solid 10 points each week right there. So
Yeah, since week 12, it says 9, 10, 10, 11, 9.5, 14. So for $4,000, that's pretty good. And you're just basically supplementing to try to afford Taylor at this point. So
yeah.
yeah. All right. Anyone else you like out of receivers?
Some other players I looked at. I did look at Jefferson going against Chicago, especially with Cousins being back. Bears don't have a great secondary, regardless of what they did against the Giants last week. I also thought A.J. Brown this week against Houston would be a solid play, but he's so boom and bust. He's not very reliable for a cash picking type lineup.
Yeah, I thought it was too expensive.
I think Christian Kirk against Seattle is a great play. And then DJ Moore is also another player who he's not going to wow you, but he'll get you solid points against Tampa Bay, probably especially in that garbage time if they end up benching players.
Yeah, I really, really like DJ Moore this week. Sam Darnold's going to probably get the start, and he just throws so many balls to DJ Moore. He didn't have like a great showing last week with Darnold starting, but he had 8 targets. And yeah, Darnold just really relies on him. I was looking towards getting a Pittsburgh receiver for a little bit, but Claypool just hasn't really just not like a big fan of him right now. And Deontay Johnson, at this point, I'm not, worrying about COVID at this point.
Yeah, the NFL has given up caring about it, so.
Yeah. So we can move on and see what you like at tight end. I'm not crazy about my tight end pick. I picked Cameron Brate because I figured might get a touchdown for me. Just really needed to keep my money down, and I think if some people are out, like Mike Evans, I think is going to be out, and they won't have Antonio Brown. They're going to be throwing to, the lesser or the less likely players on Tampa Bay.
I went with Cole Kmet because he's just been getting a ton of targets recently. And, Fields actually throws the ball downfield. So I think he'll be a solid play there for probably like 3 for 50, which is basically all I'm looking for out of my tight end. He doesn't get in the end zone. Jimmy Graham is stealing all of those touchdowns, and it's annoying.
Yeah, honestly, I really like Cole Kmet for the future, like next year. Young quarterbacks like their tight ends, and they were really like designing plays to get him the ball when Fields was in. So I actually really like Kmet for like a late round. If you're not going to pick one of the top tight ends, picking up late in the next year's draft. Anyone else from tight end you like, or we can just move on to flex?
The other tight ends that I think could be good plays this week, I think Zach Ertz against Seattle is a great play.
Get so many targets.
Yeah. There's another tight end I'm blanking on. Oh, it was Everett? No, Higbee, sorry. I think Higbee he's just been getting enough targets and like enough volume that with DraftKings being PPR, I think he's worth a play.
Yeah, I like Higbee as a fantasy player, but man, I've been watching him and he is not good in like actual football. But they keep throwing the ball, so I guess that's fine. And so for my flex, I actually picked Jamal Williams from Detroit, just thinking he's going to get the carries. I'm not sure if they're going to bring Swift all the way back, but figure he's still getting some some at least red zone touches, and Green Bay, I think, just might be a little bit of a slog in the second half. So cheap option.
My flex is Elijah Mitchell. I didn't bring him up in the running back category because I was going to bring him up here. He just gets so much, like, having the San Francisco running back whenever they get all the volume, which he came back from the injury and they immediately gave him everything, and they didn't give anything to Jeff Wilson. So he's back to being the starter. So.
Yeah, back to being the starter of a Shanahan offense for pretty cheap, $6,000.
And
it's not
if
much
you look
at
at
all.
his last game against the Rams earlier this year, he didn't end up in the end zone, so it wasn't a double-digit play, but he did have 91 yards on the ground. So
Yeah, and 27 carries. It's pretty crazy.
You throw a touchdown on that 91 yards, and you're very happy.
Yeah. And now we get to go to your favorite part, which is defense.
Yes, defense.
I picked the Titans. Pretty cheap. And Houston, hard to go wrong.
I looked at three defenses. I looked at the Bills playing the Jets because that's just a great matchup, and the Bills have a solid defense. I also looked at the Vikings playing the Bears because it's a very, very cheap option. And Fields is a rookie quarterback who still likes to turn the ball over. But I went with the Washington football team playing the worst offense in football.
Probably a safe bet against Jake Fromm. Honestly, I like the Giants defense too. I think this game is just going to suck. They're both so cheap. The thing is with like defenses, you can be like, oh, I'm going to look really far down, but it's only like a $300 difference, so it's really not that crazy. I also kind of like the Patriots against Miami. It's a revenge thing for Bill Belichick after losing week 1, and he's going against Flores, and Tua doesn't inspire confidence, So I think that's also a pretty good play, but a little more expensive. All right. Anything else you want to go over fantasy-wise?
I think that's it for this. We will continue to have episodes throughout the playoffs at the very least.
Yeah. All right, and we will be going over the playoffs, the exciting playoffs next week. All right. See you guys next week.